Well, hi there. This is Greg Smithwick, the host of So Local Pasco, the podcast, and So Local Pasco TV. And I want to talk to you a little bit today about the technology that brings you my programs. And it's important that we have this little discussion because I sense a lot of confusion out there, and not just among older people, which may be a surprise to some of you, but there are some young whippersnappers that are very confused about the terminology and how these things get done. So let me wax philosophical and historical with you for just a moment or two. Television. What we think of as television started out as a system whereby an image was generated in a studio using a camera. That's the very basic version of that. And that signal was then processed and broadcast, see, that's why we call it broadcasting, through the air, through the mystery of radio waves, across our continent, across our town. It was picked up by a device that sat on top of your roof, an antenna that picked up the signal. That's exactly what those antennas look like. They look like a big, fat Italian-American hand with fingers, stubby fingers pointing off into the distance. It was a weird time in American history. You may have seen photographs. Anyway, your antenna on top of your house drew that signal in, processed it down through a wire and into your television set, where through the magic of television, it appeared that Bob Hope and Bing Crosby were actually in a tiny box in the corner of your living room. It's creepy as hell. Anyway, that's how television was defined in the early days. And the funny thing about that kind of thing is it sticks with us for a long time. Telephone. What we have in our hands these days are really not phones. They are multitasking computer terminals, but we call them phones because that's the terminology that we all learned as kids when we had to stand in the kitchen tied to the wall to talk on them. Anyway. So that's television in a nutshell. Radio, very similar except for the lack of picture. In a studio, someone generated a recording of human voices or music through a microphone. That was processed by engineers and sent out through there's those mystery waves again, through the atmosphere and gathered by an antenna, similar to the one that, the television antenna, that processed the signal into your home and delivered it to your radio. Sometimes radios were so portable that you didn't even need an antenna system. It was built right into the little transistor radios, which in my childhood were just about the size of our modern day cellular devices. It's blinking. I have a message. See, I have a message on there. Anyway, so that's how we have always come to define radio and television. So now we move into the modern era, and I want to talk about two terminologies that people get very confused over. The one is streaming content, and the other is podcasting. Podcasting itself is a bit of a mystery term, and I want to unpack that just a little bit. So let's start with podcasting, since I started with podcasting, and it's primarily how we're going to communicate. Podcasting got its name from the iPod, the Apple device that allowed people to carry hundreds of songs around with them in their pocket, the original radio killer. And podcasting was the ability for you, any listener, to record your voice talking about whatever you wanted to, and then upload it to a service where other people could download and listen to it. And initially, early podcasts consisted of people learning where the boundaries were, and that there were absolutely no boundaries in what they could talk about or who they could share their content with. It meant that someone in Bangladesh could download and listen to a 10-minute rant by yours truly about how I got a cold skinny latte at Starbucks. I don't drink skinny latte. So anyway, but the point was that it was a wide open thing. Now I'm going to go off on a tangent here. I know that's shocking for some of you, but I remember hearing someone talk recently about the first time they were at somebody's house with their Apple II computer, and the guy was generating a document, and he decided he didn't like the font, and he just changed the font. He clicked a button, and the font changed. And his friend used to be a typesetter, where you actually literally had to deal with hundreds of little letters in metal stamped letters that they used in the print press process. So if you wanted to change a font on a newspaper, it literally meant tens of hours of work of one person painstakingly going through and changing all the letters on and retypesetting the entire document. And this guy had done it in the snap of a finger. And my friend that told the story was knocked out by this idea that now this meant that every man could be a publisher, every woman could be a music producer, every person could be an author and actually publish their own documents. Well, podcasting is the people's radio. Podcasting it meets a need that radio in America at least never met, and that was the idea that the public would have access to broadcasting. And now that creates a new problem, and the new problem is my content good enough that people will actually want to listen to it every day? Listen, lean in close. Nobody wants to hear about your skinny latte problem every day. So that's why the challenge is for people like me who grew up in real radio, making terrestrial radio is what we call it, real radio. I'm making real radio. We'll get there in a second. But anyway, the challenge for me is to make something that's interesting to you every day. I don't always meet that challenge. Sometimes it's only interesting to me or me and 4 other people, and that's why I don't talk about slot cars or aquariums very much on my podcast, because it's a very limited audience. So what I set out to do is create a program that had massive appeal to a small market, and I'm a really hyper local. So Local Pasco is designed to meet only from 41 to Anclote Island, and from county line to county line. Now, if you live outside of even Central Florida, you don't know where Anclote Island or 41 is. So, this podcast is not targeted at you. And that was my whole idea, was that we would make something local and of interest to local people. And I think we're accomplishing that. So now we've told you the history of how podcasts came to be. Let me tell you how it applies to you. This is going to simplify it for you in a way maybe no other explanation could. All a podcast is a radio program that you can access on your cellular device or other internet-capable device. That means your smartphone, your tablet, like my nice Samsung Tab A, or on your desktop computer, like the rig that I use to record my show every night, or your laptop. And even some of you can access this program on your smart TV. You can access it in your car. So that means that it is as portable as you are. And here's the beautiful thing about podcasts is you listen to it when you want. You're not going to miss my show if you sleep in. In fact, I'm probably making my show while you're sleeping. I usually do it very late at night. The point is, whenever you choose to tune in during the day, you're going to get my 10-minute podcast at your leisure. And that is a huge boundary break from terrestrial radio. It also has benefits for people who want to advertise. It means that you're not locked into drive time ad rates. If you want the most people to hear your ad, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter when you're going to buy an ad from me at the rate that's the same for 6 a.m. as it is for noon, as it is for 10 p.m., as it is for 3 a.m. because people are listening to this podcast when they want to. And right now, between 200 and 300 people a day are downloading the podcast. More than that are actually reading my content on Facebook and the website, but we don't have a way to quantify those numbers, so I'm uncomfortable saying there's 500 people a day listening. I think there are, but iTunes, for instance, does not allow me to access how many people download my podcast via iTunes. So page hits I get, how many people hit the web page I get, but if you subscribe on iTunes, you don't necessarily go to the web page. So there's a lot of folks out there unaccounted for, and that makes sense to you as an advertiser, that the numbers are actually bigger than what I tell you, and you should consider that. So that's what podcasting is. All podcasting is a delivery system for radio shows. That's it. It's just the way you get it. You used to get your radio through the airwaves into your house, and then you could get it in your car, and that was the 50s, and it was wonderful, and there was Jiffy Pop. Amazing stuff. And after that, there was cable. Cable is how you got TV shows into your house, and you had a lot more channel options and a lot. One of the things you saw happen probably was the quality programming went down as the number of programs widened, and we're seeing that trend continue. That's reality television fills up a lot of channel space, and that's what producers are really after, is a way to fill up their channel. So all these things are streaming TV, YouTube, podcasting. These are delivery methods. And the reason that they're cheap right now is because most people aren't accessing them. And I think that's because most people are uncomfortable with the technology that brings those things to them. So what I'm going to make is I'm going to make a little instructional video, actually, of how you can, and what's going to happen is I'm going to have Josh help me. He's going to film me actually using my phone to access my show, my tablet to use to access my show, and we're going to show you how you can sit down and in about 5 minutes you can be subscribing to the blog posts on solocalpasco.com, how you can subscribe to the YouTube channel, and how you can subscribe to the podcast. And what that means is, instead of you having to be home at 7 o'clock to set your DVR to watch something, you're just going to set it and forget it. And every day you're going to get a notification that says, hey, there's a new podcast from that Greg Smithwick guy, or hey, there's a new video posted of So Local Pasco TV on YouTube. And I really want to make that happen for you because I want to engage the most people possible. So if you're able to access this video, you're going to be able to access everything that I do very easily. And this video is going to be designed to show you how to do that. That's my 10-minute preamble. I'm Greg Smithwick. I'm the host of So Local Pasco, the podcast, and So Local Pasco TV, and I'll see you out there when we film all the technical stuff.